Okay, hey there, folks. Welcome back. It's great to be back. I took quite a long hiatus for the back half of 2025 to recharge my batteries, and I'm here to say, I'm back, baby. I'm back. So, welcome to Russ's Rock and Roller Coaster, intriguing interviews with creative minds. And with a new year and a new energy, I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to introduce tonight's guest, my good friend, frequent partner in crime and fellow inmate, Hildy Silverman. Hildy is a multi-genre author with a focus on fantasy, sci-fi, steampunk, and horror. A short story specialist, Hildy was also the publisher and editor-in-chief of Space and Time magazine for 12 years, is the past president of the Garden State Speculative Fiction Writers, and is a current member, along with yours truly, of the author collective Crazy Eight Press. Welcome back, Hildy.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Okay, so just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send any notes or questions you have for Hildy in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. Okay, hold on. I'm just doing a little techie thing on my side, so bear with me for a second. Okay, I don't know why I'm not popping up. All right. All right, so as we always do, we'll start at the beginning. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Okay. Well, I was born in Gary, Indiana. Yes, just like the song. But then when I was about one or two, my parents moved us to Valparaiso, Indiana. So very, very small town, nothing but corn and cows. And it was an interesting upbringing out there. And then, yeah.
Okay. So what was the lineup back there? Are you an only child? Did you have brothers, sisters? What was the situation?
I am an only child. It was just me.
Okay, okay. I'm going to take a minor interlude. This is just a tech thing. Are you seeing me center screen when I'm talking?
I see you. So my square is to my right
Okay,
and your square is to my left.
okay. All right. So just a weird thing for usually I pop up center screen and for some reason
Right.
I'm not today. I don't know. Sometimes Zoom is weird. Okay, no problem. All right. So talk to me. What's your so it was talk to me about your family's heritage. What's the lineage of the family there?
The lineage of the family. So going way back, all Russian, both sides. Actually, I believe it's the area now that would be called Black Russia, which I'm not sure if that's part of it's Ukraine, I think. I truly don't know, so I apologize if I am mangling that terribly. My grandparents didn't talk about it very much, but my grandparents all came over from Russia at various times before and during the Depression. Uh, my family, they were all Jews. Everyone's Jewish. So they all settled in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So both families, my mother's and my father's.
And about to the degree that you understand this, around what year did they land in the U.S.?
Well, on my father's side, I want to say it was right around the time of the Holocaust. Um, he got out of Russia and then later got most of his family, not all, but most of his family out right when parts of that area were being invaded. My mother's parents, I think, were around the same time, but I'm not quite as sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they came to the U.S. They settled in Philly. So how did Philly end up in Gary, Indiana?
Yeah. It was an interesting change. Honestly, it was just my father's job. So my father, he was a really brilliant guy. He grew up, he had a very hard life growing up, a very impoverished, difficult life, but he was brilliant. And at some point, this is how he was also very self-deprecating. He never played it up much. But basically, his story to me was, well, I took a test and I must have done well because the University of Pennsylvania invited me to join for free and to pay for absolutely everything. Please, please come and join our first ever engineering class. So he was one of the first people who graduated the UPenn engineering program school. Uh, and so he after a couple other smaller jobs, he got a big job at a construction company. Construction company, they built things like Grand Coulee Dam and other like major
Oh,
projects. They built the UN, little
really?
things like that.
Wow.
And he was an estimator with them and later a senior estimator, which means
But
he figured out the cost of these
so
things.
did your dad, was he part of the UN team? Oh,
No, literally like design, part of building the building.
yeah, that's what
Yes.
I mean. He was,
Yes.
wow. So your dad had a hand in the construction of the UN.
To some degree, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So at some point, though, they transferred him. First, he was transferred to New York, and this was after he had married my mother in Philly. So they first lived in Flushing, New York, and then from there, yeah, he got transferred to Gary, Indiana, and then later Valparaiso, Indiana, for several years, quite a while. We were there till I was 11.
I was chuckling because my grandmother Bubby, she lived in Flushing for 40 years, and I spent a lot of time there as a kid.
Yes, yeah, that was pre-me, of course,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yes, my mother said to
yeah.
at least tell me about the little apartment they lived in there,
Yeah.
but
So
she liked it.
did either of your parents either speak Russian or have a Russian accent, or had they been like Americanized at that point?
Well, my parents were both born here.
Right.
That said, my father's first language was Yiddish. He
Oh,
did not speak English until he went to grade school, and they kind of said, you have to speak English. So I think he was
oh.
5 or 6 before he spoke English. My mother always spoke English. My grandfather had a very thick Russian accent.
Hmm.
My father's father. My other grandparents actually did not. I think because they came over when they were much younger. My father's father was already a grown man when he came here, whereas her parents were kids, or yeah, they were still quite young.
So since your family came over to the US, in the thick of World War II and the Holocaust in particular, did they carry that baggage with them to the US, and did that trickle down to the family, or was it kind of one of those things where they kind of walled it off and you didn't feel it?
I would say it was more walled off. Like they never talked about it. Certainly not to me. I mean, to my parents, my parents knew. Like my father told me, my grandfather had a sister who refused to leave Russia. Her family was there. She didn't want to leave. He got out their father, my great grandfather, and his brothers all left. She wouldn't leave, and she and her whole family were never heard from again. So it's pretty obvious what happened to them. My mother's parents, like I said, they were younger, and I think they might have actually gotten out before it was before the Holocaust. This is like
Right,
like I said, they didn't talk about it a lot, so I'm kind of reproducing this in vague
right,
memories from when I was a kid or what my parents told me.
right.
But yeah, they didn't talk about it really.
It's even weird for me now, even asking these questions, because, we are at that age where, I mean, that was 80 years ago.
You know.
And, as a kid, though, so you grow up in, 60s, 70s, 80s. It wasn't that long ago, but now it's like a lifetime ago. And I mean, unfortunately, what comes around goes around, unfortunately, but weird thing. All right,
Yeah.
so you're out in the Midwest. So your dad was an engineer. Was your mom, did she work? Was she a homemaker? Like, what was the situation there?
So my mother, before she got married, worked for about, I want to say 15 years for Universal Studios,
Really?
which, yes, back in the heyday of the monster movies and stuff,
Really?
they had offices in Philadelphia.
What did she do?
She was now they would call it an admin, and she was a secretary there, but she did more than typing and filing. She helped book movies into theaters, things like that. When the stars would come in, she would schmooze with them and all that. So that was her background.
Well, wait, hold on a second. Whoa, whoa, whoa. 'Cause I never heard any of this before. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Now I got questions. So I'm going to make an assumption. You know what? I won't even make an assumption. So let me ask you this. What impact did that have on what you wound up watching, absorbing? Was that the kickstart of your fascination with monsters and horror? Is that where it comes from? Or
Well, in part, I mean, my parents both really loved horror, science fiction, fantasy. Like my mother
huh.
more the films and the TV shows and such. My father was a big science fiction reader, and also loved all those things. So yeah, like from my earliest memories were watching, Godzilla movies on Sunday morning and going to see films that I was probably too young to see, but were really cool and good horror stuff. Yeah.
Wait, what the hell?
Yeah. And
Uh,
I love the all the old, Universal werewolf movies and vampire movies and things like that.
okay, cool. Sorry, I got some goofy thing here. Did you come on twice? It says here, Hildy Silverman.
I just saw another me show up, which is kind of cool.
I,
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
been cloned, I
I
guess.
don't know what this is. Hold on. What
I've
is
been duplicated. I mean, it's not my face, it's just a square that also says Hildy Silverman.
all right? Because it came like anyway, Zoom is being weird. Okay. So hold on. So wait, so okay, now my head is swirling. So your dad was the sci-fi reader. Your
Yeah.
mom was the horror watcher and was schmoozing with the horror folks. That must have been cool.
It was pretty cool. She had some cool stories. She met a lot of, very famous people at various stages of their careers.
Like who?
Well, this story I always thought was kind of fun. So when she was working at Universal, there was a fella there who was the handler. He was, I guess, called a janitor then. You would call him like a sanitation engineer now or custodian.
Uh-huh.
And he was a really nice guy, very friendly. And one day he came to the office. He said, "Okay, my mother's name was Kay. You'll never guess my son. He's been trying to get a job, get into acting. I just got hired for this big part. His son was Michael Landon, and he
Oh,
was going to be in I Was a Teenage Werewolf."
oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay,
So
cool.
that was cool. My
Okay.
mother met Kirk Douglas. She met it was an Italian actor named Rossano Brazzi, and she loved him because she loved the way he said her name, and apparently he was very sweet. Um, yeah, a
Okay.
few, she rattled off a few that she had met along the
Okay.
way with various opinions.
So
Yeah.
what? So you've got these two parents who are, you know, I mean, they didn't use that word back then, but they were genre nerds back in the day before we called them these things.
Hmm.
And you're out there in the Midwest as an only child in the corn. And so
Love the corn.
what was it like to be out there back then? Because
Wow.
we lived in I mean, in some ways, a very different world today, and I'm assuming in some ways maybe not so different.
Well, it was there were good and bad, as they say. There was good in that it was a very sort of a sheltered, quiet, peaceful for the most part lifestyle, a little boring, a little slow, but also very free. It was what you always hear about Gen Xers, you would go out in the morning, your parents would send you out in the morning,
Yep,
say be back by 6,
yep.
the day was yours. So, I remember going out with my friends and we'd go out into the cornfields and we'd find an abandoned barn and explore it. We'd go to there was a big pond nearby with trees and we climbed trees and all. The fact that I'm not riddled with Lyme disease is a freaking miracle. I don't know how I escaped
Yeah.
that.
Don't get it. It's horrible.
There's not a good thing. I mean, I would literally be lying down in fields I don't know, it's just a miracle somehow I didn't get anything. Um, we were adventuring through the woods. There were, so it was Tornado Alley, as that area is called. We were part of Tornado Alley. So tornadoes would come every so often, and kids being idiots like we were. Uh, there was one particular day where we realized we could strap on our roller skates and take our kites and use them as sails and go sailing down the street as the tornado was getting close and the wind was picking up, which was really fun until you realize there's no brakes on roller skates
Ah,
where you're going that fast, and literally the only way to not die was to sort of let go of the kite and fall over. And then our parents yelled at us, "Get in the basement, get in the basement." So, it was an interesting life as far as that goes. The less good was we were the only Jewish family for miles and miles and miles and miles around. It was a very non-diverse area. As white and Protestant as you can imagine, like completely, no one was different. If a kid was Catholic, they were ostracized because that was too outrageous. So there was a lot of dealing with that bigotry and anti-Semitism and a lot of incidents that occurred. And my poor mother was very, very unhappy there. I never realized how unhappy until later in life when I realized that's just not how things are all the time. You grow up with it, you think, well, that's just what life is. But she had lived a very different life in Philadelphia and New York, so she knew the difference,
so
and it was
was there any,
tough.
white sheep people out there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to school with kids whose parents were literal members of the KKK, literal, like robes in the closet.
Ay, ay, ay.
It was very open, uh, very open bigotry. I think I was 5 when first was asked where my horns were on the playground. Kids would ask me why me and my people killed Jesus. Like I don't even know who he is. What are you talking
Oh,
about?
jeez.
So yeah, there was a lot of that. That part was not a good time.
So how does that, I mean, I have to imagine that has some sort of an impact on you. So so then and as you kind of got out into the world, like what did you carry with you?
Uh, I carry with me, unfortunately, quite a lot of anger,
Mm,
and a lot of anger issues that I've had to learn to manage over the years. I also carry a very hefty distrust, which again I've had to work through to the best of my ability
sure.
because my instinct is people would be nice to me because I look a certain way. I'm not a stereotypical looking person who's Jewish.
Right.
So a lot of people would start out treating me as a friend, welcoming me, all's good. And then they would hear my given last name, which was Zevin, and they would say, "Oh, well, what is that? What are you?" Or "What church do you go to?" There was always some, at which point I would say, honestly, I'm Jewish. And that's when things would change, either immediately or soon after. And it was either the kid themselves, although not often right away, sometimes, mostly after they'd gone home and told their parents about the Jew. And then they would have to come back the next day to school or when we were out playing and say, "Hey, I'm not sorry, I'm not allowed to play with you anymore because you're Jewish." Or you can't come into my house because my mother doesn't want any dirty Jews in the house. So,
Mm.
you know, you get to be a bit distrustful of people
Yeah, I would think.
after that. Yeah.
I would think. All right.
Yep.
So you had some wonderful adventures and freedom, and you also had some kind of some not so great stuff going on there as well.
Yep.
So then you leave that area, you go to college, and so where did you go and what was that like? What did that do for you?
Well, there was an interim there where
Oh,
my father got transferred to Connecticut, Stratford,
okay.
Connecticut when I was
Okay.
11.
Okay.
Um, it was the happiest I think I had ever seen my mother, just thinking back. She literally jumped up and down. We're getting out. We're getting out. She was so happy.
Yeah.
It was something. But so we went there. So from 11 to 18, I was in Connecticut. Oh my.
Okay, all right. I'm getting
I
we're
think,
getting pornified here. Hang on,
yeah,
guys.
hang on. A
All right.
little
Oh, I know what happened. All right, I know what happened. I got jammed. Hang on, guys. All right, let me see
cover
what
your
we.
eyes, kids.
Okay, wow. All right, I
Yeah.
got it. I'm gonna have to do some tech cleaning up after this one. Oh boy.
Oh dear. Anyway, yeah, so we were in Connecticut and I didn't have a good time, a great time there. It was a little bit better. It was a little bit more diverse. There were a little bit more, people of all kinds there as opposed to the same. But there was still a lot of bullying, a lot of unhappiness, and I went to my parents right before high school started, and I said, I have to get out of the public school system. I can't take it anymore.
Right,
I've been bullied my entire freaking life. I either you let me go somewhere outside of public school, or I'm dropping out.
right. Wow.
I was mad and I was
Yeah.
done. But I also had the presence of mind to go to my junior high school guidance counselor, who was very helpful to me and very kind, who helped me find a private, affordable school that was not a parochial school as far as most parochial schools being Christian. He found a Jewish one with me. It happened to be run by the Lubavitchers. It's called Chabad runs them in New Haven, Connecticut. And I went to my parents and I said, I want to interview and I want to get in, see if I can get in there. And they, to their full credit, said, okay, it's something we'd have to pay, but we can do that. And yeah, okay, let's check it out. And I went and I had a really good experience. They let you spend like a what they call a Shabbaton there, which is basically Friday night to Saturday. You stay over with a group of other, it's girls with girls, boys with boys. So I was with girls, uh, and experience it and get to know the other kids and all. And I loved it. And for the first time, absolutely the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. I
Oh,
felt like I had met the people that would be real friends to me. And I said, yes, let's do it. I know we're not religious because we weren't,
right.
very much not. My parents were very secular. I said, they welcome secular Jews too. There's other secular Jews there. Please let me go. And they said, okay. So I went to high school at Beis Chana Academy for Girls.
Mm, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's when the healing began, I guess.
it was life changing to be able to go to school without my stomach in knots. Like I would go to school. There were some days when I was still in public school, I would get so sick just from the tension and the stress and the the constant barrage of torment. Uh, I used to break out in hives head to toe. That was all from nerves. Or I'd be throwing up. It was just horrible. And for the first time, I could look forward to going to school and actually, learn and have friends and have a positive experience. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that my parents were willing to let me do that because I think I don't know what would have happened if I had to go through 4 more years of
Right.
what I'd been going through.
Okay. Well, there's so much I want to ask, but we only have so much time, so I'm going to have to skip over some stuff.
That's okay.
So we're word people. Let's get into this. When did you first really start getting serious about fiction?
So I always loved to read. I was a big reader. My parents encouraged it. I read everything. There were no limits on my reading. My parents never said that's too old for you, that's too mature, that subject matter. Nothing was off limits. So I was reading from the instant I was able to. And I really fell in love with first hard science fiction. Ben Bova, Asimov, And then I kind of expanded from there into fantasy. I discovered Lord of the Rings and all of that. And then I came across horror and I was like, oh yeah. So, uh, just forever. And then I realized, hey, people write these things. I could try that. So, one of the very helpful things my mother taught me, one of the many very helpful things, but this in particular, was how to touch type.
Sorry, folks, I had a little tech thing. I spazzed out. We'll get Hildy right back. Don't worry. Um, we'll get her right back, I promise. And this is a goofy one today. Sorry, folks. Quite a day. It happens sometimes. What can I tell you? And here we go. All right, let's get her back. Start video.
Yeah, I got booted. So
Sorry. Okay. Okay, so you were reading, so you got into horror.
yeah, so my mother taught me how to touch type very young, very young. And because she was a great typist because of her years as a secretary. And with that, I could sit down, stick paper in, and write my own stories. So I started the first, well, going back even before that, when I was in grade school, we had a project to write our own little books, our own little stories. Now that was cardboard, paper folded together, and we were supposed to illustrate them and write a story. So my first little story was A Boy and His Dog. Very creative title, I know, but I was little. And it was a story about a little boy who lost his sight and got a guide dog. Not genre, but it was my first effort. And after that, I was like, wow, I would like to keep writing things. So I would type little stories all on my own for me, not to submit or anything. But yeah, I was writing since I was not counting that assignment. I'd say all the way from when I was 12, 13,
Right. Okay.
writing my own stories. Yeah.
So so we'll skip ahead a little bit. So you zigged and zagged, and you ended up being the editor-in-chief and publisher of Space and Time magazine, and for 12 years. So how did you get there?
So it was an odd and circuitous road. So yeah, skipping a whole bunch of stuff, but let's say I decided I wanted to try to actually get published as an author, instead of just writing for myself. So I saw an opportunity, a gentleman named John Ordover, who was running pocketbooks, I think it was. God, if I'm wrong, he's gonna slap me. But he had a contest for people to write stories for a new, like an anthology he was putting out. And he was opening it up to anyone who wanted to submit. So I submitted, and the first couple I submitted, he sent back very nice feedback, rejected them, rightly so. They were not good enough, but with advice and guidance, and kept saying, try again, try again. Well, tried again, and eventually I gave him something. He was like, yeah, I can do this. So poof, I was published. He also invited me to New York for lunch with a whole bunch of writer folks and editor folks and such who he was friends with, who would meet once a week for lunch at this diner in New York. And I fell in with that group. Great group, some of my best friends still.
We're talking about the Malibu, I'm assuming.
We are the Malibu group, we called it, because it was the
Hmm.
Malibu Diner. And from there, I made more connections, started writing more, getting a few more things published. It was really cool. And I was invited to what was then called the Science Fiction Writers of America event their annual dinner and wine and dine. We called it the Mill and Swill. I don't know what the official name was, but it was called the Mill and Swill. And I was at one of them, and so was Gordon Linsner, the founder of Space and Time magazine. And I had been at a convention. I had also, during this time, started going to science fiction conventions, just as an attendee and learning as much as I could in the audience, listening to panels, listening to speeches. And one of them had been given by Gordon. And I got to reading Space and Time, and I really liked it. Well, we were chatting at this event, and I was telling him how much, I'd seen him at speaking at some event and how helpful it was to me, blah, blah, blah. Love the magazine. He's like, yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to shut it down. Things have changed for me and I want to do some more writing of my own. I tried to sell it, the sale fell through, and I guess I just have to shut it down. And I said, because I just lost my mind in the moment, well, what if I want it? And he looked at me and he's like, what if you do? And at that point, I had
Oh,
been doing some work for a nonfiction magazine. So I had been a contributing editor. So I did know something about how it worked, and not far from expertise, but I had something. I knew how to handle things. I was also working in corporate, so I knew the business side of things. I had worked, yeah, at Little Brown Publishing. So we struck a deal, and yeah, I took it over. And fortunately, his amazing team of editors, contributing editors, and art, not art, art wasn't there, poetry,
right.
fiction editor, Gerard Horner, Linda D. Addison, and a bunch of really great first readers slash associate editors were willing to stay on. And, that was fantastic. And then I found a great art editor, Diane Weinstein, and that was it. We were off to the races.
So during that time, and just a real quick interlude for the folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for Hildy, send them in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end. So over those 12 years, I mean, you must have worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of writers. What was your biggest takeaway from reading submission from so many different creators?
That there's a lot of really, really, really talented people out there. I was always very impressed. Now, keep in mind, because I did have a couple layers under me, by the time a story got to me, it was already, pretty much blessed and going to be in the magazine. So I didn't see a lot of the initial slush. Some, but not a lot. But that said, yeah, and just so many different writing styles and ways to approach sometimes the same subject matter, but with an entirely different view of it. It was really something, and I really value that time for having helped me improve my own writing. Just reading what people did, how they used language. Some would be more literary and floral and descriptive, and others would be, hardcore and punchy and right to the point, and which served what kind of story better. There were so many elements.
So so you dabble in different genres, but as a writer, well, I would say as either an editor or a writer. Do you prefer working with horror as opposed to sci-fi or fantasy and steampunk, or do you feel like it's just equal opportunity?
It's pretty much equal opportunity. As an editor, I like, you know, any of those. In fact, one of my big things with Space and Time was encouraging people to blend genres and not be bound by one or the other. Throw some fantasy in that science fiction, throw some steampunk in that horror. That was all great. Um, so I am happy with editing any and all. In writing, it really depends on the subject of the story, I guess, and
Right.
what genre serves it best. I would say horror is probably first for me.
Right. As it
Just
is.
is.
Yeah.
just just is. But I enjoy very much writing other genres. Even, I've started writing some non-speculative Sherlock Holmes, and that's turned out to be a lot of fun.
All right. So you tend to focus on short fiction. So for you, what's the appeal for short fiction? A, and B, do you have a desire to get a novel out there?
I have always sort of leaned toward short fiction. I read both. Well, when it comes to pleasure, I read both. I was very influenced, though, by Richard Matheson and his short stories, which and just the ability to encompass a whole world building and a plot and characterizations in relatively few pages. I love that challenge. I just tend to write shorter. Uh, it just seems to serve the kind of stories I write better. That said, I have dabbled in writing novel length. I have something that could use a lot of refinement before it ever sees the light of day. I don't know if I would ever really pursue it. The longest thing I've had published was a novella,
Mm.
uh, which was a cryptid novella for eSpec Books, in their series. Uh, that was a lot of fun, but that's as long as I've gotten published so far. I haven't tried really with to get a book published yet.
Okay. All right. So a few years ago, you joined our crazy little band of writers at Crazy A Press. Now, I can speak from personal experience many, many times. For those who don't know, Hildy and I have co-written several pieces together. We've plotted several others, and she's helped edit a bunch of my books. So I can say without a doubt, she is one of the very best editors I have ever worked with, and quite arguably the best. So, has being part of Crazy Eight Press impacted your writing career in any way? Being because you have, opportunities to sort of work with the same people on a kind of rolling basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's just a pleasure. The people I work with, as you know, I was already, except for a couple who I met afterwards, I knew already or were friends with already and already respected their work. The ones I didn't know personally, I knew of and certainly was, dazzled by what they've produced. Um, the kind of editing I've gotten from people like Bob Greenberger and Michael J. Friedman, these incredibly accomplished authors and editors, uh, has been very helpful. Working with people like you who are fabulous writers, and being able to I had never thought of having a writing partner on a story. I didn't know how that would go. And I mean, I'll just say you made it easy. It was a pleasure. I wouldn't have had that opportunity come up, I don't think. And just getting to work on the anthologies there. I edited one. I've been part of several others, even before I joined Crazy Eight Press. And to be able to join in those worlds that have been created has been super fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was great. But now it's time for a special segment on the show where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are seven possible categories, including a few new ones I created for tonight's show. Wherever it lands is what you get. And the
Okay.
categories are Vampire's Choice, Stranger in a Strange Land, My Favorite Enterprise, Soundtrack of Your Life, No Such Luck, Creature Feature, and Steampunk Mechanics.
Oh
All right.
boy.
Okay, you ready? So here we
I
go.
think so.
Here we go. All right, round and round. No whammies. Let's see what we land on. And what do you got for tonight? For Hildy, we got Steampunk Mechanics. This is the first time ever on the show.
No
What is this?
boy.
What is this category? I don't even remember what I did. So what kind of madness did I come up with? All right. All right. Oof. So, as an amateur crime fighter in the Victorian age, you are recruited to join a steampunk style organization where you have tech, support, and teammates after who go after really bad folks. The one caveat is that the steampunk tech is powered by cow flatulence, such that every time you deploy a steampunk gadget, it gives off a gnarly scent that is hard to wash off. Do you join the team or do you go solo?
Wow. I think I'm going solo in this case. I have smelled what comes out of cows.
Okay.
Indiana girl. Been around a lot of cows, and no, thank you.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay, okay. Okay, I couldn't help myself. Okay. All righty. So now
That's
we're
a
gonna pick
different
your
kind of steam. All right, no.
All right, so now we're gonna pick your poison. I got three choices for you. I'm not gonna tell you what's behind each one, and I'm gonna tell you that all three are brand new categories that have never been on the show before. So you're the first. So I'm not gonna tell you what's behind them. You got A, B, or C. Go ahead. Pick.
Right down the middle. B.
B. All right. B is, oh, I like this one. Age of the Page. Since the dawn of man, from cave drawings until today, we as authors, we love our words, or to be more precise, our stories. And we love to put our stories to paper, or as the tech has evolved to e-readers and audio files. But what's more important to you? That we tell our stories regardless of the mechanism, or do you feel that books, the printed page, has a timeless, intrinsic value that simply cannot be replicated in any other form?
I'm definitely in the category of get that story out there in any way, shape, or form. Not everyone can use paper's very nice, books, you hold them in hands. I love them too, but not everyone can do that for all kinds of reasons. I think it would be really sad if people who can't get their hands on a paper book or for some reason can't read it didn't have lots and lots of other options, audiobook, ebook, whatever form it takes, it's still storytelling. Just you're verbally telling someone a story. It's all just as good, just as worthy, and just as valuable.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so thank you. So now I'm going to give you some truth serum. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. You ready?
Oh boy.
All right,
Okay.
here we go. Favorite flavor ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
Ooh, what's one food you will never eat ever for any reason?
Olives.
My wife is the same. Bucket list destination anywhere in the world.
Oh wow. Anywhere in the world, huh? Bucket list. Uh Australia.
Scariest movie you ever saw?
The first Alien movie.
Ooh, yes, that was a scary one. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, definitely flying.
Okay. Do you play any musical instruments? And if not, which one if you could?
I did for a time when I was young play the violin quite poorly. I have zero talent at it, but if I could play something, it would be a guitar.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, equal love, equal love.
All right. Favorite cocktail? And if you don't drink, your favorite unwind beverage?
I drink on occasion, but it's rare, so I'd say my favorite beverage would be Coke Zero.
That's the first ever on the show. Okay.
I'll bet.
All right. So you can see a live performance, sports, music, theater, whatever, any seat, any venue, any time in history. What's your choice?
Oh, holy moly, that is a tough one. Any time in history? I mean, give me some actual real Shakespeare, like original Hamlet, Hamlet live
Okay.
with Willie in the audience.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. If you could get a continuation of any canceled TV show ever, what would it be?
Probably Firefly.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. All right. So now we're going to go to our advice column. So, what's the best and worst writing advice you've ever heard anyone give to aspiring writers?
Hmm. The best, huh? Um, the best I think would be to discover your own voice and not try to copy someone else's, no matter how famous or well known or successful they are. Uh, don't try to write like that person, whoever it may be. Find your own voice, find your own way of telling the story that is genuine for you. Worst advice was early on when I was learning a lot of things myself, and somebody reversed show don't tell. Like the way they told it to me was the opposite of what it actually is, which was incredibly confusing. Yeah. Yeah, basically they were like, "No, you should just tell tell it instead of showing it on the page," which was bizarre and weird. And I think they might have had a stroke or
Stroke?
something. I don't know why they said that because it was very backwards.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a weird one. All right. So we have some time for a few questions. If anyone's got any, put them in the chat box. If not, I'm going to hit up one or two questions that I didn't get to earlier. So I know you said here, and I know you because I know you, as a horror fan, but horror is a big tent, and there are sub niches within horror. Do you have favorite sub niches, or is it for you, is it just yes to all?
I do have favorites. I am more of a fan of supernatural horror, ghost stories, vampires, things that are unclassifiable. Cosmic horror is a big one for me. I am not so much a fan of a standard slasher, or that sort of genre where it's serial killer stories. They have their place. They're just not really my thing.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so I'm going to skip around a little bit because just for the Hildy and I were chatting offline before we got started, and so we're going to get back to your regular life a little bit. So we live in strange times, and strange things are happening. You were recently part of an event that is not something that you normally think is on your bingo card. Um, Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's a sad situation, and unfortunately, it's ongoing. So, one of my coworkers' nephews, his went missing right before the big snowstorm a few weeks ago, the really big snowstorm. And unfortunately, he's on the autism spectrum. His parents and everyone has been looking for him. If you live in New Jersey or even the tri-state area, you've probably seen the news. His case has been on the news. No one knows where he is. We've been looking. So I went out with one of the search parties. Different groups are taking turns working with the police, trying to find this poor kid. Uh, so yeah, I experienced going out with a search party. Basically, I partnered with another friend of mine from work, and we went door to door, with flyers, and we asked people if they'd seen this young man who's been missing, and to please get in contact with the police if they found him. We also took a little detour into the woods because at one point, in an area he'd been seen in, we saw footprints in the snow, and they were going out to what looked like sort of an abandoned building. So we thought, well, he was caught out there in the snow. He was not dressed for the weather. Maybe he went there. So we actually went out into the woods and looked around. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything. But yeah, we looked around
So
rivers and
what's that?
creeks.
So
Yeah.
put me in the moment because I mean I've never been a part of something like that. I mean I don't know if I ever will. Who knows? But I mean, the only, experience I have of that kind of thing is when you see things on the news, you watch a movie or a show and you see people out there and you could see it and I intellectually understand it, but put me in the mindset of you're literally stomping through the woods looking for some missing kid. Like Put me in the moment.
So it was probably something the police would yell at me for doing because they did say specifically don't put yourself in any bad situations, but the opportunity posed itself. So the snow was really deep, as you know, in this area. So it was very hard to walk through. It was extremely cold. It was still very, very cold here. So all bundled up and just had to sort of punch through the snow because there was a layer of ice on top of it. So to get out there, just had to sort of stamp through the snow. It was very slippery.
And just for the folks at home, where is here?
I'm sorry. It's this was the area around Plainfield, New Jersey.
Okay.
So there were trees everywhere and branches and brambles everywhere. So I was, pulling them aside, holding them aside for my friend. And then we got to a point where she really was having some difficulty moving forward. And I said, okay, wait here, because I was near this abandoned house. I said, I'll go check the building. So I went pounding out there and, in my heart, I'm like hoping he'd actually be there, but also very worried what I might find
Right.
because
Yeah. I mean,
it, it had been, I mean, this blizzard had hit and it was sub-zero and, the worst things go through your head.
right. Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
I was yelling his name and followed the footsteps out. Unfortunately, it turned out this abandoned house, it was actually just walls. That's all that was left. It was actually very eerie. It was very creepy because it's just in the woods, these walls. Uh,
Wow.
so I looked through the opening where I guess the door would have been, and but there were no other footsteps there. The footsteps had ended, and there was no sign of anyone in there, and that was it. And then I marched out. I told her I didn't find anything, and she said, "There's something moving back there." And we looked
Oh.
over, and there was a very large animal of some sort.
Oh, jeez.
I suspect it was a coyote
Right.
because New Jersey has a lot of those, but it was prowling around. She said, "We gotta get out of here." And I said, "Yeah,
Holy
okay, we
cow.
gotta get out of
Wow.
here." So we did.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Um,
Talk about a walk in the woods. Jesus.
yeah, it was very eerie and very disturbing. But
Wow.
we're still
Wow.
holding out hope this young man will be found. I know another party went out this past weekend. There's flyers everywhere, there's news stories everywhere, so we're
Wow.
still hoping.
Well, you were on the side of the angels and you did a lot more than most people. So hopefully he's all right and we get a good outcome. All right, folks.
Uh,
So let's shift the energy a little bit. I'm going to share my screen. I got some stuff to share and then we're going to call it a night. All right. So bear with me real quick and then you're going to get the good stuff. All righty. Hang on. And here we go. And and share. Okay. So Hildy, what am I looking at here?
you are looking at Prism, that is the anthology I edited for Crazy Eight Press.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I also have a couple stories in there. This has an interesting history. Originally, these stories were written, or not all of them, but a handful of them were written for Kindle Vella, that program, which did not, unfortunately, go very far, but basically was an opportunity to serialize stories. Bob Greenberger was leading that effort, and a few of us wrote stories for it, but unfortunately, Vella sort of fell through. So we had the stories, and we were like, well, it's a shame for them to go to waste. I had helped do some of the copy editing on people's stories, so I took the lead and yeah, put this together, invited in other authors, ran the Kickstarter, and
So
here it is.
what's the setup?
The setup is it's I guess you would call it spy-fi. I've heard that term before. I like it. It's set in the 1980s and it includes secret agents on a mission to figure out where these shards of something, we don't know what it is, but something extraterrestrial that exploded over the Earth, sending shards and pieces everywhere. Those shards, or many of them, have abilities or get activated and things happen. They can make things happen, not all of them, some are dormant. And they're all suspected that if they're put together are going to form something. You don't know what it is, a ship, a weapon. We don't know. So we all wrote our own age secret agents. Many of us included their own supervillains. And there's an overarching story that ties it all together, and it's just all these adventures. So sort of like MacGyver, little X-Files, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, Hildy and I, we side note. So Hildy and I did a lot of we were sort of the chief architects of the overall thread, and so you got these scientific gadgets that fell from the sky. A certain group says they're so dangerous we can't let anyone have them. We got to hide them. And another group that says, "What do you mean we can't? Of course we have to play with them. What if they cure cancer and they feed the whole world?" And the other one says, "Well, but what if they blow up the world?" So everyone's after them, and both sides think they're right, and it's a mad dash to who gets them first. And of course, things go a little sideways. Some of them are standalone stories, and some of them have a broader mythology. And I was fortunate. I wrote the finale for better or for worse, and as I tend to do, I kind of mucked up the works. And well, anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Well, it's
Yeah.
awesome. If you haven't gotten your copy, please do. It was loads of fun, and we're talking about maybe doing another one. So it's up to you guys. All right. As for me, what do we got here? So this is my latest novella. Came out last year. It's Hide and Seek, Fury the White Mask, and here's the setup. So in the real world, British Secret Service, MI5 is domestic. MI6 international, James Bond. But what if there was MI7? It's a covert faction. They are spies, but the spies themselves are classic monsters. And in my tale, and this is all YA, and it's part of a larger universe, I've got Agatha, who's right here, and she is a descendant of Jekyll and Hyde. You've got here Gilbert, as you can see here, who is a descendant of the Invisible Man, and then Lily, who is she's a new character. She's a cheetah human hybrid who's got all sorts of athletic abilities. Well, anyway, Agatha's grandmother, who had full access to the Hyde power, has been kidnapped. And the powers that be, they're running sort of like a Professor X style school out in England. They say, listen, there's someone who wants the Hyde formula, and they're holding Granny hostage. Now, we would send out our chief agents, but we don't know if this is inside job, so we can't trust anyone. So you guys who are only 15 years old, we know you're not ready. You're going to have to go out there and you're going to have to find Granny yourself and figure this out. So it's part spy thriller, it's part heist, and it's also, you got a lot of monster mash going up. Because what happens if a 15-year-old girl who's not supposed to mess with the formula until you're well into your 20s starts messing with things long before you're supposed to, and sort of things like this happen. And that's our setup. So if you like monsters and you like spies and you like action and thriller and it's YA, and well, that's what I got for you. All right. Fury the White Mask is published by Padwolf Press and is available on Amazon. All right, folks, that is our show. I want to thank you so much for my guest, Hildy Silverman, for coming on and talking to me about your life and your writing and all your other kind of stuff. And thanks everyone for being patient with our little tech wonkiness. And I love seeing you guys back. It's great being back on the air. And as always, please be gentle, be kind, be generous of spirit, and for God's sakes, go read a book. And I'll see you guys back. I'll be in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye now.
Bye all. Thanks.